Time for business news now. Stephen Carroll joins us on set for that. Stephen, going to start with the latest on that oil pipeline hack in the United States.
US President Joe Biden says the White House will be beefing up efforts to combat ransomware attacks after the Colonial pipeline was shut down on Friday. Its operators say they're hoping to restore service by the end of this week. The FBI says a criminal gang known as Darkside was involved in the hack, that group issuing a statement denying that it was connected to any foreign government and saying that they regret creating problems for society. President Biden, meanwhile, says there's no evidence that Russia was involved in the hack. Kemi Nedlek has the story.
Drivers queue up to fill their tanks amid fears that the East Coast could run out of fuel. Some had been to several petrol stations only to find them empty, as experts urged consumers not to panic buy.
It's unbelievable. When I was riding today, I thought that it was a catastrophe coming. I'm like, what's going on? I seen all these cars parked everywhere, and I was just like, OMG, I have to fill my tank up.
The shortages come in the wake of a shutdown of the Colonial pipeline on Friday, which supplies 45% of fuel to the US East Coast, after its IT systems were held to ransom by a group of hackers. To counter shortages, the Biden administration moved to lift restrictions on road transport of fuel.
We're prepared to take additional steps depending on how quickly the company is able to bring its pipeline back to full operational capacity. And my administration will be pursuing a global effort of ransomware attacks by transnational criminals who often use global money laundering networks to carry them out.
An Interpol report last year warned that hackers are increasingly targeting larger organisations and critical infrastructure with ransomware, as the amount they can demand is far higher.
I think it is a wake-up call. Every utility, every large refinery, probably in the United States and on other continents, is going to have meetings and make sure that they're protected against something like this.
Colonial Pipeline says it hopes to restore the bulk of its operations by the end of this week.
Now, while some motorists are having difficulty filling up their tanks, oil experts say that that's due more to logistical local issues rather than a broader shortage of fuel available in the US. In fact, on the markets, the price of crude oil hasn't really been affected by the pipeline shutdown. WTI and the international benchmark Brent both trading lower today.
OK, so Stephen, what's happening on the stock markets this Tuesday?
Well, it's fears of rising inflation that sparked a sell-off in shares in Asia. The Nikkei in Tokyo falling by 3%. Investors concerned that a spike in consumer prices might see central banks roll back some of their stimulus to the economy. That's despite repeated assurances to the contrary from the Federal Reserve. Similar picture today in Europe at the start of trading. A sharp sell-off in the early minutes. London, Paris and Frankfurt all down by around 1%.
Turning next to the business of vaccines, and Novavax is delaying plans to roll out its COVID-19 jab.
The US biotechnology company says it won't be applying for authorization in the United States or the European Union until after June. That news sending the company's shares tumbling by 12% on Monday. Novavax's one-shot jab is particularly important for the COVAX programme that's supplying jabs to developing countries. The company also is developing a combined flu and COVID vaccine.
Meanwhile, a group of top prosecutors in the United States is calling on Facebook to scrap plans for a social network for children.
44 attorneys general from states and other US jurisdictions want the social networking giant to abandon its project to create a version of Instagram for young children. They say they're concerned about the effect it could have on their mental and emotional well-being. In a letter to Mark Zuckerberg, the prosecutors warn that social media can be harmful to children and that the company has a poor record of protecting children online. Facebook has defended the idea, saying it would have safety and privacy in mind.
Finally from you, Stephen, a legal battle over Ugg boots.
A federal appeals court in the United States has rejected an attempt by an Australian company to remove the US trademark on the sheepskin-lined boots. In Australia, the term Ugg isn't trademarked and it's used as a generic description for boots which have been made since the 1930s there. But an American company, Deckers, has trademarked Ugg Australia and sells the boots in more than 130 countries around the world. Australian Leather, which makes the boots down under, had challenged their trademark, but judges rejected their arguments. The Aussie firm's owner says he'll take the battle to the Supreme Court. He says that Ugg should be protected as a generic term like champagne or feta.
Okay, Stephen, thanks a lot for that wrap up of the business news.